Thank you, Judge. The state calls DCI agent John Tubbett to the stand.
All right. Sir, I'll have you come on up and just take a seat to my far left, if you would. And I'll swear you in once you're seated. And yeah, you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. All right, please raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And sir, for the record, can you please provide us with your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
John Turbett, that's Jon, and the last name is Turbett.
All right, Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you, Judge. So, you've stated your name. How are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Iowa Department of Public Safety, and specifically their Division of Criminal Investigation, or we call it DCI.
How long have you been with this Division of Criminal Safety?
I'm just beginning my 26th year.
Can you tell us your education and training to be in this position?
I have a 4-year Bachelor of Arts degree from Coe College in Political Science, and I have a law degree from the University of Iowa College of Law, and then I attended a 19-week police academy for the state before becoming a sworn officer.
Are you therefore a peace officer in the state of Iowa?
Yes.
We've talked about DCI to this jury, but there's some people who may not know what DCI really is. Can you just briefly tell us what DCI is in relation to other police departments in the state of Iowa?
Yes. We're oftentimes described as a rural law enforcement kind of assistance agency. So local police departments, sheriff's offices are able to call us 24/7, and we would dispatch agents like myself, we're plainclothes detectives, police officers, to assist local agencies with investigations.
As part of an agent at the DCI, have you had experience investigating cases involving homicides or major crimes?
Yes.
What's your experience in that?
Basically, my entire career, I was working death investigations or homicides within my first year. I've continued to do that, probably with increasing frequency. It's now a pretty significant part of what I do.
So were you involved in the investigation of the death of Karina Cooper that brings us into this courtroom today?
Yes.
How did you become involved in this investigation?
I actually became involved several years after Ryan's murder in 2023. I was asked by my colleagues to assist with a review and then specifically some interviews.
So, fair to say that your specific role in the investigation was more of interviewing witnesses?
Yes, I think all that I did in this case was interviewing the defendant and several witnesses.
You talked about interviewing the defendant. Did you identify, can you identify the person, is that person Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you identify her in this courtroom?
Yes.
Will you please go ahead and do that? Your Honor, may the record reflect identification by the gesture of the hand.
The record so reflects.
Now, you talked about in the course of that investigation, you interviewed witnesses, including the defendant, Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember the day that you conducted the interview with Karina Cooper?
Yes, that was May 4th, 2023.
Do you remember where you conducted the interview?
Yes, I was instructed the interview would take place at 1846 K Avenue in Traer, which I understood to be the scene of the murder as well.
That's the residence where the defendant lived at?
At one time, yes.
Okay. When you're doing this interview in 2023, Ryan Cooper was killed in 2021. Is that a fair
Yes, I believe June 18th, 2021.
And what was the purpose of the interview that you're doing in 2023?
A couple of things were discussed. We wanted to see if the defendant would hold to the same positions that she had several years prior, but also when we reviewed that, we just decided that it would be good to explore for more depth and more detail as well than what we had from a few years prior.
Was your interview, when you take the interview, were you just with the defendant and you at that point?
Was it just the two of us?
Yes.
Yes, ultimately, when I first arrived, Ryan's brother Aaron was also present, and I met the two of them on the driveway. I spent a little bit of time with Aaron. He toured me through the home so I could see where things had occurred. And then shortly after that, I met with the defendant, and it was just she and I at that point.
When you interview the defendant, do you ask her to tell you everything in detail about what happened and the nature of her relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Part of that is, do you also want to know everything and have her know that nothing should be left out?
Yes, so an extremely important part of the interview would be to explain I'm interested in every detail, even things that people might think are not so important. So I will give examples like every conversation or every meal or even what you ate for a meal or what were you watching on TV. I tell them no details too small because we're very interested of what people are willing to share or not willing to share. We really are just probing for as much detail as possible in those interviews.
Did you ask her to give you an account of what happened that night?
Yes.
Starting from earlier evening, did you ask her to tell you what happened?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
So the evening prior to the murder, she says that the family had gone to a baseball game. They had come home, I believe, around 8 p.m., had pizza. They'd cleaned up and showered. And then she said really from that point on, it was an uneventful evening. The children went to bed. She ends up in what they would call the master bedroom, I guess, in bed with two of the children. Ryan goes to sleep in his recliner, as was the norm for some time. And then she said that Cade had slept upstairs.
So you understood there were three children. One was called Cade, who was sleeping upstairs, and she was sleeping with two other children in the bedroom.
Yes, Cade would be the oldest, and she told me he was sleeping upstairs, and then the two younger, Cable and Cortland, would have been sleeping in the bed with her.
As you talked to her, did she report waking up during the night?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about waking up during the night?
She said the first time she woke, there was no particular reason other than that was the norm. Her body was kind of on that cycle, her bladder, and so she would normally wake between 2 and 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And so she said at 3 a.m. she woke simply to go to the bathroom.
Did she tell you what her perception or observations of Ryan Cooper were at 3 a.m. when she went to the bathroom?
Yes, she reported that he was snoring and the TV was on, and so she went to the bathroom and just went back to bed.
So the TV was on and Ryan Cooper was snoring?
Yes.
On the recliner?
Yes.
Did she tell you what happened next?
She said she did fall back to sleep. She thought it was for a short period of time, and the next time that she woke was not for her bladder, but because she heard a crash.
Did she tell you what her thinking was in regards to the crash that she heard?
Yes, she said that she'd immediately assessed that as the shower caddy falling in the bathroom that was right next to the bedroom, and so she got up immediately to investigate.
How did she describe her getting up immediately to go investigate? What happened in that process?
She said she got out of the bed immediately and then had tripped over. They have a large dog, Ransom. She described him as a 100-pound Rottweiler. He was asleep at the foot of the bed, and so as she got out of the bed and made her way to the bathroom, she had tripped over the dog and then gone on to the bathroom.
Did she tell you if the dog made any noise?
She said the dog had made a woof, like a small noise like that.
When she tripped over the dog?
Yes, I think she was saying either when she tripped on it or right before she tripped on it, perhaps as if he'd perceived the noise but didn't get up, or when she tripped on him. Right in that all happened in a short time frame.
According to her account, she tells you she goes to the bathroom?
Yes.
Then what did she tell you she does next?
She sees nothing in the bathroom, so she's there, very quickly, and then she moves on to the kitchen and sees nothing in the kitchen, and she describes, and we talk about for a little bit, her assessment. She looks out through the kitchen window into the well-lit driveway area, and she doesn't see any vehicles or any people in the kitchen or outside in the driveway area.
She describes the driveway as well lit.
Yes.
Once she looks outside the driveway and sees nothing or no vehicles or nobody, what does she do next?
She then moves on to the living room.
What does she say to you that she sees or does when she gets to the living room?
Her first perceptions that she described were the TV is now not on like it was now in sleep mode, so it had gone to sleep. And she goes over and turns on a lamp.
So now the TV is off,
Yes,
and she turns on a lamp in the living room.
yes.
What does she tell you she sees or observes when she turns on the lamp in the living room?
So Ryan was still in his recliner. She turns the lamp on and she says, I see blood, lots of blood.
What does she describe that she does next once she sees lots of blood?
She begins screaming, and then she very quickly moves towards the stairs to go get Cade or intercept Cade as he's coming down the stairs.
So she tells you she runs upstairs to get Cade,
Yes.
who was the son who was sleeping upstairs.
Yes, that would be the oldest son that she said was sleeping upstairs.
Does she tell you the reason why she wants to get Cade?
I believe she says she doesn't want him to see things, so she tries to get him, on the stairs or upstairs and whisk him into the bedroom with the other two children and close him into that area so he doesn't see things or perceive things, I think.
She wants to lock him with the other kids in the bedroom.
Yes, so he can't see what's going on.
Now you talked about the dog, Ransom, and you described him that she told you is like a 100-pound Rottweiler. Did she tell you how the dog typically behaved with strangers?
Yes, my recollection is she described him as this 100-pound Rottweiler. He was interested in people, seemed to be very much a family dog. We were kind of comparing notes. I mentioned my dog. So, for instance, she would talk about him spending time. He would roam the house at night and check in on the various family members, but interested in the family and people as they came.
Did she tell you he will typically bark at strangers?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
That Ransom will typically bark at strangers?
Yes.
You talked about his nighttime behavior. She described as a dog would roam through the different rooms in the house.
Yes, she said that Ransom would roam. Sometimes he would spend time with Ryan out in the living room and sleep there for a while. He would sometimes go upstairs to see Cade or sleep up there a little bit, and then of course he would sleep in the bedroom as he was that night, she reported, when she tripped on him.
In fact, when you're discussing this, does she tell you about her bedroom door whether it was open or closed in relation to Ransom's behavior?
Yeah, I think in her description of the dog and his activities, I asked her, it occurred to me to ask, and I asked about the door, and she said the door was left open that night. It was at least partially open so this large dog could come and go through the doorway as he pleased since he was a roamer.
Let's talk about firearms. Did the question of firearms come up in the interview with the defendant?
Yes, I recall we had quite a lengthy conversation about firearms.
Did you and her discuss the firearms that would have been either in the house or either close to the house?
Yes, I think I made a couple of attempts to try to cover this well. I talked about guns she possessed, that Ryan possessed, guns that were in the house, other places they kept guns. Tried to have that conversation several different ways.
Did you learn that there was a firearm in the bedroom that
Yes.
she was sleeping in?
Yes.
Do you remember what firearm it would have been?
She described it as a .380.
So a .380 caliber handgun?
Yes.
Did she talk to you about Ryan teaching her how to use firearms?
She said that the .380 that she said was in the bedroom in a lockbox had been given to her by Ryan, and that they had sat on the couch and he had demonstrated where the safety was, how to take a magazine in and out. But that was the extent of the instruction that he provided her at that time.
As you talked to her about firearms, did you get to learn that she'd used firearms before?
Yes.
She tell you what kind of guns she'd shot before?
She said she'd shot shotgun in high school, but she had never shot a handgun.
When you talk, do you have a discussion about the house, in particular, the entry points in the house, and how visitors will come and go, or how people could come and go in this house?
Yes, having walked the house just shortly before that with Aaron, I tried to make sure I understood how people came and went from the house.
Can you tell the jury what you learned from that conversation?
Yeah, my understanding was, in speaking to Karina, there were only 2 entry points into the house. There was a door in the kitchen that was most typically used, really always used by people to come and go from the house. And there was a door that led to the outside that was in the living room where Ryan had been murdered, but that was rarely used.
In fact, did you learn that only a stranger would use the living room door?
She specifically told me that, and we went over that several times, that the kitchen door was the door that everyone came and went from, and if someone had utilized the living room door, she told me that would be someone who had never been to the house. It would be a stranger.
Did you ask her about her observations of the living room door that night that Ryan was killed?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me she thought the door was closed because if it had been open, she would have remembered that.
In fact, when she talks to you about that living room door, does she tell you the proximity or dimensions with it in regards to Ryan's recliner and where Ryan was found dead?
Yes, the recliner she described blocked that door for the most part and made its use difficult. You couldn't really open and close it well. Particularly, I think she said if Ryan was in the chair or someone was in the chair and it was reclined, it made that door even more unusable.
So she stated it would have obstructed, the recliner would have obstructed
Yes.
the door if it were to be opened with Ryan sleeping on it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the sleeping arrangements, especially in regards to Cade. Were you interested in asking her about where Cade slept and what his sleeping arrangements were?
Yes, I was very interested in that.
As you talk to her about this, what does she tell you?
So she told me that on that night, Cade had slept upstairs, and so that began a conversation where I tried to understand if that was normal for Cade to sleep upstairs or abnormal if he normally slept somewhere else.
And what did you learn from her?
So historically, Cade had spent quite a bit of time actually sleeping down in the living room. She said that he would watch movies with his dad and fall asleep on the couch by his dad. And there had been attempts over the years to try and get him to sleep in his own bed upstairs.
Did you ask her about her having a conversation with Cade a couple of days before Ryan's death, where she wanted Cade to go sleep upstairs?
Yes, it was my understanding that there may have been a change in his sleeping arrangement within days of Ryan's murder, so I asked if she had specifically, or if someone had specifically had Cade sleeping in his bedroom as of, within days of that time frame or that week.
May we approach her?
You may. A short recess. We need to take up something, and so I would just remind you of the admonition. This shouldn't take too long, so I just remind you of the admonition from last week, and we'll have you back in here shortly. So, thank you. Agent Turby, you can go ahead and have a seat somewhere else if you'd like for a minute.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we are back on the record outside the presence of the jury. Oh, yeah, Agent Turbot, I'm sorry, we don't need you to leave. Yeah, sorry, just mean you didn't need to stay in the witness box. Sorry. You maybe have a seat behind counsel. All right. Anyway, we're outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper here towards the end there, right before we excuse the jury. Ms. Watt asked to approach, and Ms. Watt is objecting to Mr. Turbot's use of the word murder on several occasions. My understanding is the state does not object to that. Is that correct, Mr. Kodiaga?
That's correct, Judge.
All right. So, Agent Turbot, I would just ask and instruct you that when you're referring to Mr. Cooper's death from this point, don't use that word. All right. That satisfy you, Ms. Watt?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any further record you wish to make, Ms. Watt?
No.
Any further record you wish to make, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then why don't we all take, since we're at a little break, anybody need anything, or are you guys good to go?
I'm good.
You're good? Mr. Ringel, Mr. Kodiaga, are you good? Or do you need a little break? 5 minutes? All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.